Kate here, one of the product trainers with Newline. What I'm going to talk to you about today is some nice accommodation options that we have already built into our panel. Of course, if you have any other questions that aren't covered in this video, we're just going to touch on a few things. Please feel free to reach out. For those who don't know, my background is actually in occupational therapy, so definitely used to working with accommodations, whether it be physical disabilities or visual deficits. So a couple of tips and tricks that we're going to talk about today. First things first, and this is probably one of the biggest areas that we actually get questions, folks that may have difficulty reaching the panel. So for whatever reason it may be, whether it's somebody that is wheelchair bound, and again, that's just causing a little bit of difficulty coming up to work with the panel, or any other types of positioning devices that could potentially just get between them and the panel. So some nice options for extended stylus pointers and things of that sort. So of course, if you've been with me before, you'll see me with my lovely chopsticks here, but you may need something a little bit longer and a little bit more sturdy. So I actually have a nice wooden dowel here. I always suggest folks run down to your neighborhood craft store. You're going to be amazed at what you can find. The dowel that I have here, just so you kind of know for thickness and just something that's going to be sturdy, because if it's too thin, it's going to wah, and that's not going to be as effective. So we want to make sure you have a good experience. This dowel here is actually 3/8 inch, and you can see I'm actually pretty far away from the panel, and it is 3/8. And I'll say relatively good control, not exactly the same if I was to come up and do it here with my nice little stylus, but definitely not bad, which is fantastic. And it's sturdy, so I know exactly where this is going. But 3/8 inch really tends to be, I'll say, a pretty sturdy dowel for long dowels that you want to use as a stylus. This is a 36-inch long. They also come in 24-inch, so just know you do have options there. Let me just go ahead and erase. And speaking of erasers, you do have options for long erasers. I would have the option if I wanted to. Of course, I have my nice long dowel here. I can interact. That's making me happy. We got freckles. I could also tap the eraser and then just make my dowel the eraser, which would be fine. Or I could tap the lasso, circle what I want to delete, and go ahead and delete that. Object recognition, you can kind of tell the panel what you want to do with this, which is great. And you may notice I have this nice little wooden ball on the end. This is something that comes in the woodworking section. You can go ahead without it. You're going to be just fine. Again, anything on our panels, you can have anything wooden, which works great, or plastic. You just want to avoid metal. Of course, being glass, you just don't want to scratch it, but it's just an option. It's just something else that's on there. I also have folks say, if anybody out there, I'm a big fan of the puffy paint. So that old school puff paint that you can put on t-shirts, you can also stick that at the end of any of these wooden dowels that you may want, just to create a little bit softer surface if you wanted to do that. So you got options. Right in line with Newline, of course, you have options. So wooden dowels are really, really great. You can add the little balls to the end. You can add puffy paint to the end. Let's say if you search online, you can actually find some that have rubber caps. I will say a little bit more than going to the neighborhood craft store, but you do you. Whatever works for you is fine. Another thing that's out there, if you wanted to have one end for writing and one end for erasing, because again, thinking about your object recognition, which is fantastic. I might want to be able to write and then erase instantaneously. These nice little poof puffs work great. This is a 2.5 inch, because again, it's got to be big enough to really overpower that kind of thick point writer. So 2.5 inch on that works awesome. A little bit of hot glue and you are good to go. And of course, you could put this at the end of your very long dowel and you'll be great. You can write on one end and erase with the other if you don't want to go between the toolbar options. Other things that are available, working over, say if anybody out there is a knitter, you guys are ahead of the game. You're ahead of the curve, which is great. Knitting needles are awesome because they come in really long lengths. I'll say especially now, if anybody out there has one of those giant Chucky, like big blankets with a big thick knitting on them. That's where these come in handy if you don't want to use your arm, but they make them in all different lengths, all different thicknesses and sizes, which is really nice. And they come in addition, I'll say the classic ones are metal. Those are a no-no. They come in plastic and of course wooden forms. So you have all sorts of different options. I have an 8mm plastic one here. Of course, you might want to go a little bit thicker, just depending, but I'll say this is pretty strong. This one's a little bit shorter, but of course, grab something longer and you're going to be good to go. Really, really nice with the writing on these. And I will say one thing that I do like about using knitting needles as an option is they have that nice little ball on the end. So I can actually get my pinky finger around it and have a really great grip on the stylus. Comes in different colors too. So, make it your own. But just another option that's out there. So you have knitting needles, you have dowels, you can add rubber caps to the end. Puffy paint works great. Just a couple of dollops, let it slide over and you're going to be in good shape. So all sorts of different things. Say other things that I found, which are kind of fun. I found these rollers, which you can grab and use, and just nice little foam rollers. So all sorts of different options. Make it your own. Really, really fun. Switching gears from, I'll say, needing that extended reach, let's talk about vision. That's probably the next most popular kind of accommodation question that we do get when it comes to working with the panels. Great things about the panel, so many built-in features to help anybody that may have vision deficits interact with the panel. So kind of bridging the gap. Just a little pro tip for you. Lime green is actually the easiest color to see for the longest period of time within the visual spectrum. So this is if anybody's a Star Wars fan out there, like this is your time to shine. So I've got my lime green lightsaber, but again, just being able to track where my stylus is, this can be significantly easier to track visually than I would say, just a standard, chopstick or stylus. So really, really nice from that perspective. And of course, works great. So you have options there. I'm actually going to pop out of the whiteboard. So I was just kind of in the whiteboard here to be able to show some stylus examples. Let's go to the home screen. If you pop into gadgets or apps on our panel, you're going to have access to something called the Newline Classroom Tools. Something fabulous that is in the Newline Classroom Tools is our Zoom feature. And of course, these follow you everywhere. So when you're working in your connected computer, you will have access to these bad boys. And so you can take anything on your computer and really easily zoom it in and out, which is fantastic. But all I have to do is hit zoom in. I use my fingers and very easily you can see I can make this nice and large. So I can move it around even on the home screen. So if I wanted a student or somebody else, if I'm not in an education standpoint, maybe I'm in a clinic. I know we have a lot of folks that are in pediatric clinics. You want somebody to come up and work with the board, select something, do something. Makes it really nice that now you can zoom in. And I'll say very easily zoom out if you need to. So in the Newline Classroom Tools, you do have an instantaneous zoom feature. So I'm going to go ahead and close these. Something else that is available, and you may have seen this on another one of our videos, is something called Newline Broadcast. So this is going to be in your apps or gadgets. This is an ADA tool that was developed for people with low vision specifically, which is phenomenal. With this Newline Broadcast, it's essentially what you're seeing in the studio here, except in the studio, I have it shrunk down. If you were to start a broadcast and you had somebody log in, they would get a full screen view of just what's happening on your panel. This is a cloud-based solution, really, really great, not only for vision deficits, but also for positioning deficits. If you have anybody just based on their positioning needs where they need to be in a clinic or in a classroom and they just can't see the board that great, if they have their own device, they could log into a broadcast. And what it does, anything that happens on the panel happens on the broadcast, but it allows you to zoom and pan and move through whatever features are being shown on the panel itself. And it literally is just as simple as starting that, start broadcast. Go to the website, enter in the code, boom, there you go. On your device, you have a full screen view of the panel itself. So broadcast is very, very handy. Another thing I want to show you, or just some tips as you start working and interacting with the panel is color combinations that can be useful. So I'm going to pop into my Google Drive real quick. I actually have some paper that I made. This is just a PDF. When it comes to best contrast, dark backgrounds with white writing is going to have the best contrast ratio for vision deficits and low vision. So what I did is I actually just pulled up some lined paper here. I am grabbing my whiteboarding tools, so I can go ahead and grab white ink. And now I have, oops, didn't grab it. There we go. Let's try that again. Much better. So now I can go ahead, if I'm working on any handwriting, again, thinking elementary school, speech and OT clinics, works really, really great. But anything else that you may want to do in terms of taking notes, having that dark background with white writing has the best contrast. If we go into our whiteboard, you've got a couple of options there as well to help you along this path. So we can pop into the whiteboard. Just going to add another page real quick just by tapping that plus sign down on the bottom. So we're starting fresh. To change the background, because again, that white background, you can get some distractions, not going to be great for low vision. Long press the plus sign down at the bottom right corner of your panel and go ahead, grab that dark black background. There we go. Again, change your ink to white. And there we go. Excellent contrast for anybody that may have some vision difficulties, especially low vision. Dark backgrounds, white writing. And of course, with our board, when you're working in the whiteboard, this is an infinite canvas. You can also zoom in and out and move things around. So not only can you have high contrast, you can also make things significantly bigger. You can start layering those magnifying tools even on top of that and really have a great experience. So hopefully this was a good just introduction to some nice accommodation features that are already ready to go with your Newline. As I mentioned, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We want to be here to support you on the training team. So let us know. And hopefully we'll be getting some more videos together based on questions that we get to help you along when it comes to accommodations and working with Newline. Thank you so much. Take care.